You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. We are here talking today actually about organizing, how to organize your life, how to be able to organize certain things within your life to be able to handle and to create some successes in your life. You know, it's interesting how organization can change your life forever, and it can really help you to be organized. And more often than not, we don't realize how small organizing of situations can really help our entire life. And it can be something that's really, really small, quite honestly. It can be something that's really, really small. It can be something that you don't really think has a lot of impact in your day-to-day life, but it certainly does. And so we're going to be sharing some tips on that, how to organize your life, whether it's organizing your house, your car, your office, your closet, ultimately, effectively, organizing your life. Don't forget to check out artforyourcause.com, artforyourcause.com. Go there right now and check it out on the website. It's an amazing website where artists connect with charitable causes, and artists will sell their original artworks as well as create clothing and items that are created from their original works that they can sell, that can be sold online to actually help a cause and to benefit a cause. So you have the artists that are getting money for their work and also being able to show their creativity, as well as you have charitable causes that are actually getting money from that as well. So it's a win-win situation. The CEO of that company is Liz London, and Liz London and Art for Your Cause support Live Your True Life Perspectives. We're also working on a project together called The Artist Perspective, which we'll be talking about soon, which will be a TV show that's going to be a lot of fun. Don't miss later in the hour our Live Your True Life family historian, Dan Nelson. Dan Nelson, he's a family historian, and he helps to find information on families going back hundreds and hundreds of years. So if you've been ever interested in knowing the historical reference of your family, this can be very powerful. I know that many of you listening to the show love your family. You might have some issues with some of them. Maybe some of them could be, they could work on themselves a little bit. But all in all, it would be neat to even know more about your family. So later on in the hour, don't miss Dan Nelson, and he'll be here pretty much every other or every 3 weeks. Here talking about different really cool historical things that he's learned, even famous people in history, some people that are related to presidents, and the list goes on. Rnold Smith will be joining us later here by phone, and Rnold specializes in developing communities through relationship. And he develops communities through these relationships, and he's the creator as well of the Connection app, and he'll be joining us later. You can download the Connection app to learn the connection habits, which will make your partner actually feel it, right, instead of just being told that you actually love them. Joining me in studio today, Reggie Harvey. Reggie Harvey is the author of Anatomy of a Patient. He is a health advocate, and he's advocating to help people be able to find their true calling, their true life, and overcome health issues that may debilitate them based on their own mental mindset as well as physically. Because more often than not, when we are diagnosed with a near-death illness, it is really hard to see the forest through the trees, and it can be very overwhelming. And Reggie is a patient advocate and has figured out how to do it in his own life, awaiting a transplant himself, hence writing this book, Anatomy of a Patient. So on today's show, we're going to be talking about organizing your life. Holy hand grenade, Superman. What does that mean? And, I realize that I'm one of those folks, I was diagnosed as a kid with attention deficit hyper disorder. So the idea of organizing anything, well, you know what? It kind of fell by the wayside. I remember when I was 6 years old, my mom asked me to clean my room. Well, that didn't go off very well. I pondered what to do, and I threw things in a pile, and I thought that it was clean, and it wasn't. And I realized that as an adult, I've had to work on my organizational skills. And I know to some people, they say, oh, Ashley, you have an organized closet, big deal. Well, I'm going to tell you, organizing certain things recently has really changed my life, and it's actually made my life easier to deal with the bigger issues I deal with. So I'm not having to look for something all the time when I was having to look for something, and now I can spend that 15 minutes of not looking, and I can focus on something else. So we're going to be sharing our nuggets of wisdom. I'll probably be coming from more of the female stance for y'all today about organization, and I'm sure that the men will come with their perspective as well, both Reggie and Rnold. Reggie, I think it's so interesting how the smallest organization in our life can change our life forever. What do you feel about that?
Clarity is the operative word. And what I've observed is a lot of male figures get trapped in family expectations. Somehow this false patriarchy takes over, and you find yourself pushed into trying to either consider taking over your father's business or your uncle's business, and then a lot of times people are forced by family members to say you're obligated to do this for the family. What I'm trying to say is what's key is being clear about who you are, what you like, what you need to intensify your life or bring joy into your life, regardless of the pressures of the family. They have to be secondary, and you have to learn that disappointing them is okay. That's their issue. It's not yours. And if you fall prey to being trapped into these family expectations, you end up adopting behaviors that are contrary to your own personal health. You're always under stress. Your decisions are colored by what you think the family is going to accept or not, or be criticized. And you might be 50 years old before you finally break out of that.
So you're thinking about the concept of organizing your thoughts and your reality, not based on what other people want you to do,
exactly,
but really setting that mindset and organizing, saying, hey, okay, I've taken on these preambles previous from my family dynamic that I bought in lock, stock, and barrel, but it's not necessarily who I am. So let me organize and take out basically the clutter of what has been given to me and let me know what is clutter versus what is my true reality.
And where this becomes critical is that if you are in that family trap, you end up very easily being forced to accept a life partner who is contrary to your best interests.
That's true.
And then all your personal space is screwed up because you're with this person who does not share your values, but you're putting on a front for the family, and this person is putting on a front for the family, and you don't really know who this person is because you've never met the real person because they're playing a role, you're playing a role. And then if kids get brought into the game, it gets even more complicated. So the longer you procrastinate becoming clear about who you are and what you love to do and what excites you, where your passions are, the deeper you get trapped. Mm-hmm. And then you have all of these things, these plates you're trying to juggle at the same time, and none of them are related to who you really are, and you're a mess.
And I find that very interesting because I think that also a lot of us were raised in certain dynamics, right? And we saw things every day, all day, the way that people projected, the way that they act. You know, it was funny. I was actually at dinner with my dad last night, and we were talking, and his wife said, yeah, you know, John, you always create these piles all over the floor. You have piles of newspapers, piles of this. And I remember as a kid watching that, you know, and I became that person, the girl that would pile things up, you know. And now I started relinquishing that because I realized, yes, it was a genetic predisposition, however, and it was an environmental predisposition. But I've realized that I don't have to fall into that line of reasoning, and I can actually organize my life outside of what, you know, I felt like I was able to. And it was very interesting. Like the other day, I was going through my things, and I realized how far off I've been in organizing, where it's like I feel like every day you're trying to pull everything together, and it's hard to find that, it's hard to get it all together, and you have so much you have to do. And I think that you're right, whether it's organizing your actual physical items, organizing your life, cleaning out your life, or cleaning out old thought processes that have created these cobwebs in your brain that have you sidetracked into a different living of life that you don't really necessarily want to live.
And then there's cleaning out your old habits that you've adopted and you don't even know where they came from. I was talking to a young man the other day. He's in his early 30s, works out all the time, and it seems to be in good physical health, but he was talking about nutrition and the issues that he was running into because he couldn't eat. He was learning that he could no longer eat the way he used to eat when he was 20. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, you remember when we grew up, we were told, clean your plate. He said, yeah. He said, that was a big deal in my family. I said, well, as you get older, you realize you cannot eat a large dinner anymore and process it effectively. Your metabolism isn't working that way. You have to eat a lot of smaller meals more frequently. I said, so that's a habit you need to break because you feel subconsciously guilty that whatever gets served onto your plate, you have to eat all of it in one sitting. And you can't really do that effectively anymore. And if you do, you end up feeling sluggish. Your digestion is all screwed up. You have other issues. So I said, there's something as small as that, realizing I'm getting older, my body is changing, I need to do something different, and I shouldn't be trapped into these old, like you say, preambles of, we don't even know where that came from, but that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to fill a plate full of food and consume all of it in that one sitting, in that 15 minutes. And your body can't handle that anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's actually making you sick. You have to let that stuff go. Life, nothing's going to blow up. Your house isn't going to burn down just because you make a simple choice like that. But it's these little things that are part of cleaning up, part of getting clarity. As you change and as you mature and as your environment changes, our environment isn't the same it was 30 years ago. Mm-mm. We have so much processed foods thrown at us now. Not that many people garden. You don't get fresh vegetables. You don't stuff that I didn't worry about when I was 10, 15, 20 years old. It's a big deal now. And you have to tell yourself, don't eat that. Even though it's convenient, that's not healthy for you. And the older you get, boom.
You're so right, because I have some family members, I'm not going to name any names or point any fingers, but they don't eat well. They eat really, really bad. And then they wonder why they have all these health conditions. And, you go to their house and love them to death. They live out of town, by the way, so I'm probably, actually, this is a national show, so I don't know if I'm getting away with this at all or not. But the last time I went there, every single thing they were fixing I couldn't eat, Reggie. Every single thing. And it's not because I'm being like a snob. I've cut out pork, I've cut out beef. And if you've cut out those types of items for over 10 years, you can't just randomly eat this stuff, okay? You will ruin your digestive system. You will be in so much pain. I don't drink soft drinks. There's certain things that I put down, but I remember growing up in my life, it was different. When we grew up, steak and potato was the way to go. Mm-hmm. My God, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. And I know that some of you out there say, oh, I love steaks, I love potatoes. That's all great. We're not trying to get that. We're not trying to push down or make you feel bad about that at all. We're just saying that we got to think about what we're going to choose. So when we return, Reggie's in studio today. He's the author of Anatomy of a Patient. Rnold Smith, he's not only the creator of the Connection app, but really interesting guy because he's developing communities through relationships. And just really specializes in that as well, which is really neat. Also, don't miss later on in the hour, Dan Nelson. He is our Live Your True Life family historian, and he's going to be telling us about how he got into being a family historian and, some of the interesting things that he's found out. We're going to get into some interesting stories through the next few weeks, months, talking about this, and it's going to be pretty powerful. Go check out Art for Your Cause as well on the website, artforyourcause.com, and you can find all of these links on my website, ashleyburgess.com. When we return, we'll be talking about organizing your life, whether it's in your thoughts, whether it's in your feelings, whether it's the way that you were raised, whether it's just organizing your closet or your car. And I know for me, organizing my closet and my car was a big deal, and it changed my life, and I'm on this new 2020 path. And it's really broadened my horizons because I don't take as much time looking for something, and I just feel better. So stay tuned. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back this time. We'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we're talking about organizing your life, your thoughts, your feelings, your house, your car, your office, your closet, whatever it is that needs to be organized, and how to ultimately organize your life. Now, I'm not preaching OCD here, guys. I'm far from that, okay? From an ADD background, the idea of organizing just wasn't part of my curriculum. I tried really hard, and it didn't work that well. No matter my whole life, I felt like I was unorganized. And you know what? I was. And now I figured out, I've turned over a new leaf. And Reggie and I have been talking in studio, joining us later, Rnold Smith, as well as Dan Nelson here in the next segment. I find it interesting how organizing whatever it is, whether it's your thoughts, unpacking those thoughts, organizing your old beliefs and figuring out what you want to toss out, or just organizing your closet can really be beneficial.
Truly. And when I first was diagnosed with renal failure, and I had to learn how to communicate with these strangers who were part of my medical support team and family and friends, I found that I needed to have clarity in being completely, bluntly, blatantly honest about the person I really was at the time I was diagnosed. Who I had to get rid of all of the facades, all of the public images, all those things that were in my head, even my personal brand that I thought I was creating, and just clean it, start over, so I could be completely transparent and communicate effectively to these new doctors, nurses, technicians, administrators of my insurance benefits and all this stuff. And until I got to that point, and it took several months, I couldn't defend myself properly. Because if you've got all these other plates spinning and you're trying to keep them all going, you end up telling people what you think they want to hear rather than what they need to know. And you don't have a lot of time. So it's essential in order to clean up your communication with the people around you, especially if you have a health issue or an issue with your job, or you're the business owner, you've got people dependent upon you, even to deal with your children, I would presume. I don't have children, but they come to you, when they ask you a question, they expect a straight answer. And if you're busy, like you said, looking for lost stuff, it's just the same thing as keeping up all of these facades. You don't have time to actually give them a cogent, clear, crisp answer.
You're right, and you can't think clearly to do it because you got all this other stuff on your mind. You know, whether it's the stuff that you haven't taken out of your mind, the negative thought process or the limited thought process, or the fact that you can't find your keys. That's the thing, and it's like I figured that the less organized you are, the more it's just like life is tough. Besides oh my gosh, I got to do this and I got to do that, but it takes you like 5 times longer than it takes anybody else to do it because you're over there overwhelmed because you're like, I don't even know where to begin.
Exactly. And you're hesitant about everything because you're trying to balance all of this other stuff that really doesn't mean anything. So again, it wastes energy, focus, clarity, being definitive when you're making decisions. And then it complicates your relationships with everything, with your work, with your job, even with the things you say you're doing for recreation and entertainment. None of it is actually giving you the effective benefit it's supposed to.
That's so true. When we return, Reggie, Arnold, and I are going to be talking about, how to keep yourself organized, how to organize your life. Something that you can take from today's show will change your life forever. Even if it's just literally saying, hey, I have had this clutter in my car. I've had this old mail in my car. I haven't gone in my trunk for 3 years, okay? And I haven't been able to use my trunk to put anything in it, and it's time for me to do that because how many times I have to haul stuff and put it all in the back seat, and I got to move everybody. I got to make an excuse for how unorganized I am. Let's do something, whether it's that or something bigger where you're organizing your thoughts about your past, your family dynamic, and who you are today. Don't miss it. Arnold will be joining us by phone in just a few, as well as Dan Nelson's going to be joining us. So don't miss it. Stay tuned. We got a lot more to talk about. We got a lot more nuggets of information to share with you today on Live Your True Life Perspective. Stay tuned. Live Your True Life Perspectives with me, your host, Ashley Burgess. We'll be back this time. I'll be back this time. And, 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we're talking about organizing your life, organizing your thoughts, organizing your house, your car, your closet, your purse, for God's sakes. There's so many people out there that it's a small thing that can change your life forever. Just think about if you're like unorganized with your purse, right? We were talking about this when we were off on commercial. And you're looking for something, and how many times you've had to look for something in that person, how many minutes every single time is taken, and if you allot that, you realize that you've lost 7 hours of your life, okay? So we'll be talking about that. In studio with me, Reggie Harvey, author of Anatomy of a Patient. Joining us now by phone, Rnold Smith. Arnold helps couples, leaders, and organizations be happier and more successful through interpersonal mindfulness. He's also the creator of the Connection app. Arnold, great to have you on Live Your True Life Perspectives. How are you doing today?
Oh, Ashley, I'm doing fantastic. And as always, what a great topic. It's one of those things that can make a profound impact on people's life.
It really is, and I think we all come from a different perspective. Reggie's come from the perspective of thoughts and previous, ideas on our life or who we should be or who we're not. I'm coming from the perspective of just getting my life together as far as cleaning my car, cleaning my purses, cleaning my closet so I can organize my life, because quite honestly, I was there looking so long for things, and it would really get overwhelming, and then I would worry, and I was like, it just took a bunch of time. So I'm interested in your take, Arnold, on organizing and what's most important with organizing your life as well.
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's funny when you first said that to me, immediately the thought came to mind. I was like, I'm not good at organization. But that's kind of an old thought process for me. And, the reality is that you can't run two businesses, have two kids, be committed to being a great family man and healthy and not be organized. In order to accomplish all that, you have to have organization. But it doesn't come naturally to me. So I'm coming from the perspective of someone who, struggles to keep his desk clean, who, will have the dropsies when I come into the house and drop a whole bunch and forget to put things in their place. I just have my mind focus on different things. And so organization, like on that level, doesn't come immediately to me. But as I was doing the preparation for the show, I came to think that there's actually a few different ways you can organize your life. You can be organized in your thinking, you can be organized in your effort, and you can be organized in your environment. And I think oftentimes when we talk about organization, the only thing we think about is being organized in our environment, making sure everything is put in its place. But if you don't have organization, those other two things, then oftentimes you have a much bigger problem.
That's so true. And one of the things that I've had is that organization of thought my whole life. I've been able to put that together, but my thing has been the organization of the environment around us. So how do you begin to organize your thinking, Arnold?
It's really great. I think first is really kind of thinking about your purpose for your life. There's one study that said that people who have a clear purpose of the life are way happier. Percentage, I don't know what it is. But ultimately, it's a really difficult question. There's nothing to grab onto. There's a wonderful book called Grit, which I highly recommend. It's about what is the ingredient that helps people be successful, written by a psychologist who I can't remember the name of. But one of the things she talks about is people often find their purpose through activity. Everybody says, figure out your purpose, do, that whole thing, and that's great. It's a great inquiry. But oftentimes you can figure out your purpose by looking at what you're doing in your life and what it is that's drawing you. And what she said, which I thought was so fascinating, is oftentimes people find their purpose after years of doing something. They go into the library, and it was just a job when it started, and then they started to get really interested in organization, and then they became their passion. Then it became their life's purpose. And I thought that most people encounter their purpose in that process rather than sitting in a room or writing in a journal saying, this is my life's purpose. So I think I just put that out there. But I think another way to really organize your thinking, which has been incredibly helpful for me, is having a primary goal for your year. Oftentimes we'll set all kinds of goals, and I really like Warren Buffett's perspective on priorities. He suggests, write down your top 25 priorities, the most important things in your life, and then ignore the bottom 20, and just focus on the top 5 until they're done. And I thought, because he says if you have more than 5 priorities, then you don't have any. And I thought that's a really great way to organize your thinking.
I think that is too. And it's all about priorities. And because you can't do everything. And I think that's the key, is that a lot of us out here, I came from that position when I was growing up, is I can do everything, I can do anything, I want to do it all. But we do have to priorities. So, Arnold, how do you begin to prioritize what you need to organize? How does that work?
Well, I think that goes to the next level. Once you've kind of got that organization in your thinking, the next is really organizing your effort. So now I've got this primary goal. How do I do that? And that really comes down to scheduling, which is, oh my God, I resisted that for years. I just hated being scheduled. I just felt like I was being stuffed into an uncomfortable box. But the reality is that the most successful people in the world have a routine that they follow on a regular basis. And if you want to be successful in life, that is, I mean, try it the other way. I've been doing it for years, and it's okay, but it creates a bit of chaos, and ultimately it's way harder. It'll take you way longer for success. So the more that you can nail down a routine right now, the faster you'll get to be successful. And I like Robin Sharma's tip from the book, The 5 a.m. Club, where he says, make sure the first 90 minutes of every day is focused on your primary goal for the year. So the most important thing to your job, the most important thing to your business, the most important thing to your life, the first 90 minutes of the day. It's not easy to do. Believe me, I still struggle with that. But I think it's when I do that, man, it just moves things forward in such a profound way.
That's so true. And, I find also, too, we were kind of discussing it earlier with Reggie on the concepts and ideas, is that what do you think, Arnold, about the concept of we have to let go of, like you said in the very beginning, I told myself I'm not very organized, I'm not an organized person. How do you begin to let those thoughts go, though, to overcome and to actually become organized?
Well, it's really interesting because I've been working on organization for myself for years because I'm a creative type of person. And so I knew that it was a key to unlocking my success, but I still struggle with it. And one of the things that you might want to realize is for me, I always have a lot on the go. So when it comes to the end of the day and it's time to organize my desk, oftentimes I work to the last second and then I run out the door to the next meeting. And so organization to me occurs like not doing the most important work. And so this is something often, but that's completely subconscious. And so when I'm organizing, it doesn't feel good. And oftentimes when we struggle with an activity, it's because it conflicts with one of our other success or one of our other high values. For me, working hard on what's important to me is one of my most important values. And so organization from this perspective really has a friction with that. And so whenever I do it, it doesn't feel right. And when something doesn't feel right, we listen to our bodies. That's the way humans are designed. And so really look at when you have this conflicting value, you really need to process that so you understand this kind of hidden driver that might be preventing you from taking action. So it is absolutely about letting that go because, as you said, if you don't let go of the idea that you're disorganized, guess what? You're stuck. You've got no shot. It's just, most of the time it's not real because everybody's busy. They got a ton on the go and they make it all happen or mostly all happen. But at the same time, there's always stuff we could do better, and that's the stuff we focus on. So we think, I'm not organized. There's this myth. If I was organized, I could get it all done because look at Joanne down the road or Bill he gets it all done, which is complete not true. I had to prevent myself from saying something a little not appropriate for the radio.
That's a good thing, but we'll have to do that off camera for sure, or off audio for sure. I think that's really powerful stuff, Arnold, and we're going to be talking about that more here because I feel like if you can actually organize yourself and you can organize your thought process and you can organize what matters and you can organize what's most important. But I think also, if you think about what Arnold said in the very beginning, I'm not an organizational guy, and it doesn't come easy for me. And for me, it doesn't come easy as well. Real quick, I want to talk, about family, because, family is really so important.
Absolutely.
And, many of us really love our family, we love our relatives, and we love supporting them. But we don't know a lot about the historical reference of our family, the history of our family. Joining me in studio today, Dan Nelson. Dan is our Live Your True Life family historian. And Dan, let me ask you, how did you get into starting into family history and genealogy? How did the ball start rolling with this?
Yeah, that's a good question because it wasn't like on one day I suddenly had an epiphany and discovered that I love this. But going back and thinking, where did you sort of develop the passion? I had grandparents, great uncles and aunts, and they'd share these family stories. They were in Iowa and Oklahoma, so had the good, Midwestern, Southern roots to the stories. And my dad was an avid lover of history, so I think I got that from him. And I can still remember my grandma back in Iowa telling me the story of her first Carroll ancestor that came across. He was a British sailor, and he settled in West Virginia and dealt with the Indians and all that kind of stuff. And that at age 96, he walked 23 miles in one day. And some of his descendants claim it was to see a lady. He was married 4 times, so he was a frisky guy that at 96, and he supposedly lived to be 107. So that was an interesting story. And then on my other side of the family, I had a great grandfather, so it would have been my grandfather's grandfather that served in the Civil War, and he had his eye shot out. And, to a kid, that's a big deal. And then, wow, to find out my great-uncle had a picture of that was pretty interesting. He kept a diary during the Civil War, and so another time I'll talk about that, but that was quite a deal to track that down. And I'm pretty sure I got a bunch of my great-great-grandfather's DNA. Then when I guess in my 20s and 30s, my mom had started doing some of the ancestry work. And, of course, back then you didn't have internet or computers or anything, so you had these big old pedigree charts, sort of like they use now for dogs and horses of high quality, and you'd go to the LDS supply store because the LDS church was really big into it, and you'd get these family group sheets of pedigrees. So she had these all filled out, and you'd hang them up on the wall and stuff. And then when I got married, my wife had some interesting history also. When I came into the family, somehow they were related to Nixon. They grew up in the Whittier, La Habra area in California. It was about 5 years after Watergate, so they didn't talk about it a lot, but I was always curious about how that tied in. And then my wife's grandmother was a Franklin, and they were supposedly related to Benjamin Franklin, so that was interesting to me to find out about that. And I'm still chasing that one. I mentioned on an earlier podcast what I'm doing there to try and track that one down. So when I was probably in my mid-30s, my mom sort of stopped doing it. And I think she went back to work, if I remember right, and she just didn't have the ability to focus on it. So I started picking it up and working on it. And how would I know? Here I'd be sitting here 30 years later on a national radio show talking about it. But with my career job, I was able to visit library. I traveled quite a bit, so I was able to visit libraries, historical centers, places like that. And that helped a ton because otherwise it was pretty much letter writing. You could subscribe to like family newsletters. There was a lot of sharing. It was a smaller community, and people helped one another. But it was beyond me on a weekend to call small towns, in the Midwest and look in the phone book and find people that had the same last name as the one I was researching, and randomly calling people and finding somebody who was related who had better stories. Today, you couldn't do that because nobody has a landline.
That's so true. You're right.
Yeah. So that helped a lot.
That's interesting. So I bet you have some real stories for our listeners here in the upcoming weeks and upcoming months to really share with us on some interesting stuff that you have uncoded and found with other people's families as well as your own. Yep,
absolutely. I'll be happy to share those stories with you, with your listeners. And, probably just to sort of finish it up is I became the custodian of all the records in both families, and you get your boxes and boxes. And so at some point, like everybody, it's like, so what do you do with all these boxes of information? It was all on paper, and so I had to cross that bridge.
That's very interesting. Where would folks be able to find you at if they were interested in, figuring out their family history and figuring out that genealogy and getting to know where they came from?
Just go to www.dancestorsgenealogy.com. That's one word, Dancestors with the D in front of the word ancestors, and genealogy.com. And there's all kinds of good information on the website. We got our video testimonials from our clients. You can also go to our YouTube channel for Dancestors Genealogy, and there's fabulous videos on there that can give some idea about what we're doing.
Well, I look forward to hearing your amazing stories, and I look forward to seeing you in just a few weeks.
Thank you.
Dan is so interesting, and that's why I think it's great to have a family historian here to actually kind of talk about family, but not only family in the way that we usually talk about it, the toxic relationships, the good relationships, the positive ones, the codependent ones, but actually talking about the historical reference. So when we return, Arnold, Reggie, and I are going to offer our nuggets of wisdom in our own way to help you to organize your life. And even if it's just starting with something small, even if it's just starting with something small that can contribute to a lifetime of change, that's what we want to do, because it's very, very powerful stuff that we're dealing with today. Because it takes just a small thing to have a ripple effect that'll change your life forever, that'll add to your quality of life, and, can rub off in other areas as well. So stay tuned. We'll be talking more. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. Well, you know what? We'll be back this time. Be back this time in 2 shakes.
Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we're talking about organizing your life, taking one thing from the show and adding it to your life. You know, Reggie, Arnold, and I have been talking about this, and we're going to give you our nuggets of thought because they were all going to come from a different perspective. Arnold, your nugget of thought for today's listeners.
Well, I think that ultimately when we talk about organization, and it's about that organized environment. And the one thing is so the first step is you got to have a place where things live. And that's the hardest part. So you got the mail, you open the mail, and you go, okay, now it's opened. What do I do with it? And so I end up with stacks of mail or receipts or stuff on my desk because I've got this, you know, I don't know where it goes. And so that's the first part, which maybe, you know, for organized people, they're like, yeah, duh. But for disorganized people, that's actually often the step that's missing, is we know where it goes. But use the habit stacking to create success. So after I open the mail, I will put it in its folder. After I upload the receipt, I will destroy it, or I will put it where it needs to go. That habit stacking formula can be a really great way to ensure you're starting to tackle your environment in little tiny ways.
Powerful stuff. And Arnold, I can't wait. I know that we have a lot of stuff on the horizon for you, and I can't wait to be able to unveil that here in upcoming shows. So I'm just so proud of all the work that you're doing in the communities and establishing strength and solid relationships.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley.
Reggie, your nugget of inspiration for today's listeners.
Arnold mentioned in the earlier segment that one of his issues is that he works right up until the end and then dashes off to the next meeting. People always screw up scheduling, and I don't know why this is, but nobody ever allows time to transition from one activity to the next. If you're in the same building, say it's a 20-story building, and you've got to go to another meeting with another group on a different floor, you can't teleport yourself there. It's going to take you 10, 15 minutes. So put in your calendar an end time for the activity you're doing and travel time to get to the activity that you're anticipating. Just something as simple as that. If you have to go across town, or then give yourself an extra half an hour to drive there. You don't know what's going to happen, but give yourself time. Don't just say, oh, my meeting runs up to 9:30 and then the next meeting starts at 9:30. That can't be. So just do something as simple as that. Give yourself, schedule in transition time.
Powerful, and I totally agree with both Arnold and Reggie. And, you know, the last things that I want to say is this, especially for all you women out there, clean out those purses. You know, for all you men out there, clean out those wallets. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the Seinfeld where you got George Costanza's wallet that's so big that it causes him back pain. Like Arnold was talking about, get rid of those receipts. I mean, it's just clutter. Like Reggie was talking about, give yourself enough time to get somewhere. And I'm saying this, no matter how small it is, if you just start with one freaking drawer in your closet, if you start with one drawer in your office, that clutter drawer, that just everything goes there and everything gets lost there and it all goes away and you can't find the jump drive or the hard drive or whatever you're looking for. Think about how much stress that has caused you throughout meeting upon meeting upon meeting. Do you want to keep incurring that same stress? It's not right. It's not smart. I mean, I went through that process where I couldn't find the same thing for a few weeks over and over and over again. And it might have been 4 minutes. It might have been 7 minutes. But that's 7 minutes of time that I was stressing out about something I didn't need to. That was 7 minutes of time that I couldn't do what I needed to do. And that was 7 minutes of time of me not being at the top of my game. Okay, so think about it. It might be hard, so start off and make yourself do it. If it's your car and it's a disaster, and every time you get in it, you get, oh gosh, I'm so disappointed. My car's a disaster. It looks really bad. It's so dirty. There's stuff in it. Every time somebody gets in the car with me, I got to move all this stuff out of the passenger seat. I got to move it out. I got to put it in the back. And then if somebody's in the back, they're standing on all my mail. I got all this stuff. I even got clothes and shoes and everything. It's time. It's time. It's time. because you're going to feel so much better, and you're going to feel so much more solid, and you're going to feel so much secure. Now, I don't know if we can't teleport yet, but I'd like to say that Reggie, Arnold, and myself can teleport. I'd like to say that all of us can teleport, but right now let's get organized first so that we can put our mind into something that big. Don't miss out. Go to artforyourcause.com. Check out Art for Your Cause. Check out the Connection app as well. Download the Connection app to learn the connection habits, which will make you and your partner actually feel love, guys. It's not about us saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. Okay. It's actually about doing things to show that love, right? It's taking that next step and that next communication step to actually building a solid relationship. That's called the Connection app. Go to ashleyburgess.com. You can find the link to the Connection app. You can find the link to Art for Your Cause. You can find the link to Anatomy of a Patient. You can find the link to Reggie Harvey's page, so you can order that book for anybody that's going through that process of dealing with a health issue, or anybody that just has knowledge of that and would like to break the cycle of feeling like they can't get out of it. Stay tuned. We got a great show for you next week, and Live Your True Life Perspectives will be back in 3 shakes.